All right. Hey, welcome back to the cabin once again on what I'm calling my cabin fever episode. For those of you that don't know, most people do know, cabin fever is not a real fever. It is that anxiety, depression that sets in the dead of the wintertime from being cooped up in a small place. And like some of you out there, I've got a really active mind, imagination, and that mind can sometimes play havoc on me. Like it is tough sometimes if I don't have something to do. My brain's not on my side sometimes. So typically when the winter comes, it's the time that I use to go collect firewood for the next year or just keep my mind occupied so that it's not playing games on me. And this year, you know, the holiday season's being a single man and my daughter lives here with me, but yet it's just different now that I'm in this stage of my life versus when I had a family and a bigger purpose as it might have seemed for my life. The Christmas season can be quite a difficult time to get through. And so this year I thought, you know what, maybe have some friends over and throw a little party. And I did. And I invited my mom and my sister and some friends. And what we did was we painted these nutcrackers. And this is mine and this one is my daughter's. And she didn't quite get it finished, but that's okay. And then this one here is the mayor's, and it wasn't dry yet. And he had walked to my house, and it was raining a little bit and he didn't want to carry it home, and I need to get this to him. But this is the mayor's, Mayor Pete, that's Mayor Pete's. But in that process, my mind starts thinking, what if we scale that up? What if we scale it up to life size, say 6 feet tall? And instead of doing it just for me, what if we do like I've made it clear before that even though I live in a log cabin and I have a fireplace and I live very simple, I'm in a community. I'm a community player. I play the role as Johnny Appleseed for our local festival. I go visit the schools and stuff. I'm a part of this community. And what if I scaled these up, let's say 5 or 6 of them, and I painted them, have that same group of people come over and we paint them, and we do this great public display for all the people to come visit. And not, you see these things, you can buy nutcrackers at Home Depot and all, $99 you can buy a 6-foot nutcracker. But what if I handcrafted them piece by piece? What if I tore this thing apart and scaled it up? There's the little tree, and so what if I scaled that tree up to make it bigger? And what if I built that entire doll? Here, let me show you. So this was the first one I did. So what if I was to scale this up to make a real life-size nutcracker out of it? So anyway, let me just build it real quick for you to get the idea of what I'm talking about. And I do have 2 of them here. I'll show you these 2. And then in this episode, we are going to build one of these from scratch with the log that I was sitting on and the rest of the logs here. That's how many pieces it takes to build one of these. We are going to turn one of these on the lathe and we are going to build one from scratch. Okay, so first off, let's do a couple legs. Now, all of this wood was indeed green, and you will see that it did get some cracks in it. It's okay. We're not going to paint them until June or July. Everything will have time to shrink, to crack, to do whatever it's going to do, and then I will fix those cracks and we'll proceed on with painting them. So there's our legs, and then here's our lower part of our body. And I'm going to try to scoot that over a little bit just to get it a little bit away from that heat. We don't need it bursting into flames. I'm using two different kinds of wood here, pine and poplar. These are poplar, these are pine. So this body piece is pine, this is pine. Just whatever I can find in the pine. Because it's lighter for me to move around, I'm using pine. I'm not paying for wood. There's a local family that's given me all the wood to make them. So I'm just graciously taking whatever I can get my hands on. Okay, so there's that. Let's move these guys out of here because that's the head. The chest piece. Okay, chest piece. Head piece. Just leaning a little bit forward because of the rug. Let's scoot back a little bit. And as they dry up, I'll have some bugs to work out with them. Now this one is Father Christmas. So he's got some presents on his head. They look like hat boxes. They'll get painted to look like presents. And everything will get fit together real nice. Hammer here. Now I have not made the nutcracker mouth for this one yet, but that one does have it. Okay. That one is Father Christmas. Large scale. This is my second one, and it fits together a little bit nicer. There's the legs. I also need to build him a pair of boots, because this guy has got bare feet. See them? Okay. There we go. Now, one piece. Now this one does have the mouthpiece made, and these will work. They're going to be working nutcrackers. I'm not going to drive the pin. This pin goes through the back, but it's kind of a pain to get in. You got to drive it in. I'm going to tear them back down anyway. Until they dry, they'll stay disassembled. Okay, now arm. Walking stick. Arm. Apple tree. I'll make that. Head. And it's popped. There you go. We have Father Christmas and Johnny Appleseed. Now, the next one, this is the one that you and I are going to build right now, is going to be Santa Claus. So my vision, what I saw, we have a nice gazebo downtown, and there's a committee, the beautification committee, that decorates the entire square for Christmas. So what I saw was up on that gazebo, you know, Father Christmas on one side and Santa Claus on the other as you enter into where the Christmas tree will be. That's kind of what I had envisioned, but I had told them, you know, if this is something they want to do, they can, whatever they decide, they can put them wherever. I don't care. I just want to build them. Johnny Appleseed, of course, will go in my camp. The camp that I build for our festival, for me to live in for the festival, he will go there for the Christmas season too, and we'll decorate that for the Christmas season so that people can come see Johnny's camp for the holiday seasons again. You know, just something to give people something to do, something to look forward to, something to go see. So anyway, you and I are going to build this one right now. The very first thing, I don't know if you could tell, excuse me, wrong doll. I don't know if you can tell, but the proportions are almost perfect. Like everything is proportioned exactly like he is here. So what I want to do is show you how I did that, and then we'll get into actually building the Santa Claus. Before we get down to the basement and get on the lathe, I want you to know that this is the very first anything I ever built on a lathe. And I am not a professional by any stretch of the imagination. If you're looking for advice on how to do something or what's best for one way or another, go to one of the other channels. Please don't ask me those questions, because I learned how to use the lathe while I built this. This was built on 2 different lathes. I built this one on an old Craftsman lathe, and that thing about killed me. These pieces are too big. It was like a 15-inch lathe, and it'll turn a 15-inch piece of wood, but it'll only turn at like 400 RPMs. So that's just slow. So if you could imagine a piece of wood that's maybe not balanced so good, these logs were laying outside, so one side, even though it's a perfect circle, one side's heavier than the other, and they didn't spin so good on that thing. So I wound up having to kick it on and shut it off and kick it on and work it and shut it off. And it was really a nightmare. I thought I was going to die trying to get this thing done. So I did go out and pick up a different lathe, a much nicer one, a much bigger one for this one, and we'll be using the better lathe to make the one with you. It was so much nicer to work on the Grizzly versus the old Craftsman. So we'll get to doing that. But first, what we need to do is build a pattern, and I want to show you what I did. So when I thought about doing this, I tried to imagine, like, how do I make a pattern and get it to so that I can get all the pieces scaled to what I needed. And this is what I come up with. And if you can see that, basically it is just an exact drawing of this. And how I did that, it is freezing cold outside, but it's about burning up behind me. how I made this drawing was simply by taking a picture of one of those little dolls and running it through a projector and projecting it onto this piece of paper and then tracing it. At that point, every single detail will be scaled properly. So that's what we're gonna do. I've got some pictures of that one. We will project that onto the wall and trace it out. I'm gonna change a couple little things with it, but I'll show you that when we get there. Stay tuned, I'll be right back. Okay, that'll roughly give us the sizes we need. I made the hat straight so that it could then be cut off and turned. I might have made it a little bit too tall, so I might make it just a little bit shorter. Anyway, let's get down to the lathe. Okay, here we go. Grizzly G0733. I did pick it up used. It turns a log much nicer than the old Craftsman. Anyway, that's what we'll be using. First thing I gotta do is find center on these logs. I just picked up a plexiglass centering piece here. Just get it as close as I can. These ones aren't as important as the big ones. I just drill a hole. That way if I need to trim it, I still have my marker for center. We're gonna do the arms and the legs first. The one arm that is bent, we're gonna do it first because we need to cut it, turn it, and glue it back together. And until this wood dries a little bit, you can't glue it together. It dries pretty quickly once the bark is removed and the size is reduced. So you'll notice it'll be pretty wet on the outside, but once we get in a little deeper, it'll dry out a little bit, but then also it'll dry out pretty quick because there's no bark holding in that moisture. Lost my drill bit. And this is by far, we are in the basement of the log cabin. This is by far my coldest room in the house because there's no source of heat down here. I do have a wood burning furnace in the basement. You could probably hear it running in the background, but it's on the far other end of the basement. It does suck the cold air off of the basement floor. So this air gets sucked off of the basement floor, and then the heat from upstairs gradually comes back down. But by that time, it's pretty spent. Not making excuses, but if you notice me picking up something strange, it's because I can't pick up much with this shoulder. Now we can physically get center on the two ends, but as you can tell, this log's got a little bit of an arch to it, so. It's gonna wobble a little bit right there in the center until I get it straightened out. As long as I can get above 200, I don't worry about it. Just for the start, just to get that trimmed up. I won't get a wobble until right there at about 300. I'm starting to get a little bit of a wobble. All right, very first thing we're gonna do is get this reduced down to, our widest point is 5 inches. So we don't wanna go below 5. I like to stay just a little bit above because I'm a amateur. I just don't want to take off too much. So if my minimum's 5, for doing this part, if I can get reduced down to 5 1/4 or 5 1/2, that'll give me a good starting point to do the cuff on the arm, depending on which side I decide to put it on. So first off, let's get this thing reduced down to about there. Put a table behind me to throw stuff on. I'm going to start out with the 2 big chisels just because I can take off the most material. I like this one as long as there's no serious knots in it, which there's not. If there are big catches in it, I like to use a smaller one because it's a lot less, it catches a lot less and I can keep digging. So at first we are just going to dig and try to get this thing reduced down. Getting it pretty good. You can see that it's taken off a lot more off this side than this side, but I'm getting close. Let's just move it down. I'm not going to mess around. .350 is about as fast as I can get without wobbling with that crook in it. Again, we're just reducing size right now. Okay, 25 inches long. We're gonna go, the hand is 4 inches. The cuff is 4 inches. So that's 8. This is our wide spot here. And then the rest of this will be arm. Just gonna dig a hole here. That's good. Okay, that's still pretty moist right there. This part was pretty dry actually. I've still got quite a bit of moisture there, so I'll have to sand it again eventually. There you go. We have one arm, one hand. One of these will have to get cut. I'm gonna make another one. You don't need to watch me do that one. It's the same as this one. About 11 inches from the end of the hand is where I'm cutting at a 45, because this arm's gonna be bent at a 90. I do have it clamped in place because it's round. Sometimes when you try to put something in the chop saw that's round, like a log or whatever, it will tend to roll and then jam up on you, and who knows what could happen. So it's clamped down so that hopefully nothing like that happens. And I always like to stop the saw at the bottom, because I'm clamped on the two sides. You don't know if they'll kink in there, and when you come back up, they'll catch. So that way, just trying to be as safe as I can be. So now this one will be bent here like this. So this will be the hand that's sticking out that's holding the present. But because the inside of the log is still pretty damp, I need it to dry up for a couple days before I glue it together. And I will put a dial or something in it as well. Typically what I'll do when I'm gluing it is I'll put a screw in here to hold this, and then I'll clamp the top down to hold it together. So, but we can't do that for when we're done. So I'm probably talking 4 or 5 days to finish all the pieces. So that'll give this plenty of time to dry out. Okay. There's your second arm. That'll be our straight one. And here's the first one we made, which will be bent. So we've got our bent arm and our straight arm. Okay, as I was editing the video last night, I realized there is no way I'm getting this entire doll in one episode. So what I want to do is just slow down a little bit. I want to go over a couple things on this, and then we're going to move on to the legs. I don't like my videos being more than 45 minutes. Anything past 45 minutes, people just don't stick around and watch it. So we're going to break this into a couple different videos, hopefully just 2, but maybe longer if I need to do them justice. They're pretty cool. I just don't want to miss out on any details that people might need. So let's back up just a second and just go over some dimensions real quick. 25 inches long total length, 4-inch diameter, 5-inch at the width of the cuff, reducing back down to the 4, and then I did a 5-inch hand. Those sizes are really, I mean, it's up to you what you do. And you'll notice that some of them probably even vary a little bit. The hands on the first one are a little bit smaller than what Johnny's is. Heck, Johnny's one hand is bigger than the other. It doesn't matter, honestly. And then on this one, I just cut it at a 45 so that it can be glued back together to make an arm like this one. He'll be holding a present. He'll be holding a present instead of a tree, but you get the gist of it. Now, we're moving on to the legs. Each of these dolls, each of these puppets, dolls, nutcrackers, whatever you want to call them, they have distinctive things that make them who they are. And with this one, you got Father Christmas, who will be painted really nice, and he's the epitome of Christmas. And then you've got Johnny Appleseed with bare feet and patches in his knees, an apple tree and a walking stick. So we have 2 different extremes, and it's in the details that we can get those extremes. The doll we're working on now is Santa Claus. One of the most distinctive things about Santa Claus, other than his beard and his hat, is his boots. So on the legs, which we're going to do right now, other than doing a real decorative knee, we are going to do a bump out, and then we're going to leave it a little bit wider so that when we put the front part of the boot on, which is like with Johnny, his feet come loose. So when we do the boot, which I still need to make these ones too, when we do the boot, we will make this look like a big high set of boots on here so that the bottom can be painted black. So we're not going to come back together tapered like this one is. We're going to leave it just a little bit fatter so we can make it look like he's got a nice pair of boots on. So anyway, let's get to doing that now. Probably wrap up this video today. And while you're watching that one, I'll get working on producing the rest of it. That way, you can take your time and watch it slowly. So let's get busy. Get cleaned up before I start working on the next one. Come on. Say hi to everybody. Everybody likes you. Everybody likes you. Everybody loves Archie, huh? Everybody loves Archie, huh? I've got knots on both ends, right at the very end though, so this shouldn't give me too much trouble, but this side's pretty big. Goal here is to make a leg. 5 inches is our largest diameter that we need. We need a 24-inch leg with a 2-inch tenon on each side, 2 by 2. So first thing we're gonna do is just reduce the whole thing down to that 5 inches, and then we'll start working on the details. The boot's gonna be at this end, I believe. So I'll put the boot at this end, 5 inch here. This will be close to 5 inch, but not quite. Let's get busy and just get her done. With that being so oblong, I probably get right around 200 until I get that reduced off of there. There's 200, there's 230, 240, 250. It's starting to wobble a little bit at 250. We'll get this end off and then we should be able to speed it up a little bit. Good there. Just a little bit right here on the end. about right here. Okay, that's good enough, we can get it marked. Okay, total length we have 28 inches. We need a 2-inch tendon here and a 2-inch at the other end. The most important thing about these legs is that they are 24 inches from here to here. 24 is the part that he's going to be standing on. So if the tendon is a little long or a little short, we can deal with that. We can't deal with Santa Claus having a leg that's longer than the other one. So we could always fix it, but we get it right now. So 24 inches is what I'm going to mark. Instead of marking the tendons, we'll try to stay within that 24, and then when we make the second one, we'll try to make sure we get it right. I'm going to go with 12 inches. Let's go 3/4, so 12. There. Go 12 and then 12 3/4. So this will be 2-inch here. 2-inch, 5-inch, we're going to reduce down just to make that look like it's tapering a little bit, not too much. Then we'll do a bead and then we'll do the boot. That's good for that. Now we just got to determine how much we're going to taper this boot down. We're going to take a little bit off the top down to there and then just taper it a little bit toward the bottom. Pretty good at the top, and I think we just want to bring the bottom down a little bit. That's there. And we are a little bit fatter at the bottom than we are at the top, so we want to reduce that a little bit, and then I think we're good. Round that corner on that. Let's do that first to give it the look. I think that'll get painted white. Like those little furry things that used to be on the boots. Okay. That looks good. Now we'll just get that paper. I'm mostly just going by looks now, how I think it should look. And I like it, just like it is. I think it's perfect. I'll reverse it, sand it just a little bit. And I'll have to sand these again later after they dry a little bit more. Matter of fact, that was pretty wet. It's probably not even going to sand well at all. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I'll be back on the next episode to keep going. We'll make a pair of boots and then we'll start making the body pieces to put these guys together. So we have 2 matching legs, or at least matching enough that they'll look unique to that doll and not too far away from each other. Take care, God bless. I will see you guys in the continuance of making Santa Claus Nutcracker doll.